Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So today's video is going to be relating to this little comment thread, as I am going to be drawing some Demon Slayer characters today as requested by that person, as well as a few other people who have thumbed up that comment. And I'll address the kind of little comment thread thing a little bit later, but because I am going to be drawing 3 Demon Slayer characters in today's video, the kind of footage for today's drawing session is going to be quite choppy, but also very condensed. So if you ever want to watch like the full process of me doing like my drawing process, please watch any of my like start to finish drawing videos, or even just like some of my ASMR ones are a little bit less condensed. But because like I said, I'm drawing 3 characters today, and for some reason in my brain I decided to pretty much like not 100% fully render, but I end up rendering a lot more than I was expecting to. So I spent a lot of time just drawing the 3 characters, and we are going to be starting off with Tanjiro first, just because he is the main character and I feel like he's one of the most recognizable characters from Demon Slayer. And let me get into actually talking about kind of like what the comments were referring to. So in the comment thread, there are people requesting me to draw some Demon Slayer characters, and another person informing the people, which I do appreciate that people do remember whenever I talk about certain topics like this, is the fact that I tend to not do fan art of series or characters or of like, I guess like any kind of media if I'm technically not like a fan of that series or whatever it is, just because I feel like the fan art just feels a little less genuine, and because I have less interest in it, or I don't have like as much dedication to that series, I feel like it comes across in the fan work sometimes. Let me kind of talk about Demon Slayer a little bit. So initially when the anime, so I'm talking about season 1 at this point, when the first, I think like episode or 2, I did watch when they started to come out, and I kept up with the series up until the very end of season 1. So I was a fan of the series and stuff, and I actually did a few sketches at the time of a few of the characters. I think it was mostly like of Zenitsu. I have one of Giyu, and I have drawn, or like I guess like briefly sketched Nezuko very little when I was like out and about, and this is more or less I think during my uni days. So was it during my uni days? Maybe it was just like right after uni. I don't really remember entirely, but it was around that time. So when I was watching the anime, I was really into it, so I did do fan art at the time, but obviously my interests kind of like sway back and forth, and I tend to draw or gravitate towards like other things. So for kind of like my love for Demon Slayer kind of like plateaued pretty much, and I'm not really a manga reader anymore. I read a lot of manga in my like junior high days, my high school days, and then I swapped to more like webtoon stuff closer to kind of like uni and a little bit after uni. But then after that, I guess I stopped really consuming so much media in terms of like the anime manga realm, and because of that, I wasn't really interested in, like, if I was interested in the story, I didn't read the manga to catch up. Now, there are a few exceptions to that, like Chihaya Furu, I did read the manga to catch up. Kimi ni Toroke was another manga that I would regularly keep up with because that's my favorite shoujo manga of all time. But in preparation for today's video, just because like in my brain I was like basically telling myself that I was going to do a Demon Slayer character randomizer, and I will let a wheel pick whoever I would draw, just because I didn't want to show too much favoritism, because I do have favorites in the show just in general, either just based on aesthetics, low-key based on the voice actors a little bit, and then just like general character I just enjoy. So when I was kind of doing or kind of thinking about the idea of that I was going to let a randomizer pick the person that I was going to draw, I was looking up a lot of the characters that were kind of like introduced in season 1, and the characters that I knew via spoilers, just because like I don't really care about spoilers all that much. Like I don't think it's the end of the world if someone spoils like an anime or a manga for me, or like a drama or a story or anything, unless I'm like dead hooked into it, where I'm like, don't tell me anything, like if you tell me something I will like perish or something like that. But I feel like I'm not that dramatic when it comes to series, so I don't really mind. But so because of that, there was a lot of characters which I felt I did not know too well, and were kind of just like briefly touched upon in terms of like when you were introduced to them in season 1. So a lot of like obviously the upper moons we didn't really get to see as much if you only watch season 1, and I did not watch the movie of the Mugen Train arc, so I feel like I missed a lot of Rengoku. So I decided that instead of watching the anime and binge watching, which is very time consuming and would have taken me a lot longer, I decided that I would just read the manga. I would just binge through a lot of the chapters. So I did some research, and I think the Mugen Train arc starts around like 53, 54, 55, 56, somewhere around there. And I read all the way up until chapter 206 so that I could be well prepared for today's video, which I feel like I did like. It wasn't really necessary. You'll see a bit later, depending on the characters that I drew today, that I feel like I did over preparation for the amount of stuff that I needed to do to draw the certain characters that I kind of drew today, if that makes sense. So let's get back to the drawing, and then yeah, I'll talk a little bit more just about Demon Slayer and like my kind of preference in terms of like fan art stuff, series that I'm into, or like just like general stuff, I guess, like rambling, because I tend to do that in these videos anyway. So for the illustration, you probably would have saw that I had a few references up. Now I should have pulled up references of poses. Now the one for Tanjiro, I did have a reference that I remember seeing, but I did not pull it up for today's drawing, so it might look a little funky. And basically, if I remember correctly, I think it's just a dude wearing like a white dress shirt, and he's holding a sword in a very similar pose here, but I didn't reference it directly, so I know the hand positioning might be weird or off, or the sword angle or whatever might feel unnatural, so I do apologize that I didn't do something more accurate. And I guess like in terms of the illustrations themselves, I kept them kind of simple. So the backgrounds are very much something that I would do often anyways. I end up blurring them. I kept the color palette kind of more tailored to the character, or kind of like a color palette that's different from each of the characters that I drew today. So for Tanjiro, I decided to go kind of more gold colored, just because I was thinking of doing autumn leaves, but I feel like I didn't really want the intense red everywhere, so I decided to go with kind of a softer blue, and we can do gold in the background. And I had him a little bit more like backlit with a little bit of rim lighting, and here he is done. And we'll move on to the second character. So I do have references on my phone of the character, kind of like their full body, and we're drawing Shinobu today, or not today, I guess for the second character. And the reason why I didn't really pull up some poses is that I was kind of like fiddling with the fact that I guess like maybe because I'm not too familiar with the character's design, that I have to keep glancing back at my phone, and sometimes I'm holding the phone in my hand. So I usually like having the character's picture as a reference somewhere at all time. And I didn't put them on my computer this time, so I didn't do like a compilation of just a bunch of things, because sometimes I do like the character reference. If I really want to, I'll do like a color palette or a background inspiration, which you'll see me flash on screen every so often, that I think I did for the third character. I think I showed it for Tanjiro as well, and then I will show it for Shinobu, I think, where I'm looking at a lot of wisterias so that I can get a good idea of the color palette. So the reason why I didn't kind of like look up the reference for poses and stuff is because I was just using my phone for my references, and I didn't really want to kind of like flip back and forth for the references, just because I did not want to spend a heck of a lot of time on the 3 drawings just because I knew that I didn't want to put too much time in terms of like rendering everything completely. I didn't really want to think about like a concept or kind of think about the overall composition, color palette, everything for all 3. Otherwise, I think I would have gotten burnt out quite fast, because I did these 3 fairly close in succession in terms of when I drew them. I did do them across 2 days, or I guess like I did Tanjiro and I think so. If I did Tanjiro on Monday night, then I would have done Shinobu and the next person the entirety of Tuesday, or like the portion of Tuesday that I block out for drawing. And I didn't really want to leave myself too much room because I knew I was gonna flip-flop between who I was gonna draw, which is literally why I wanted to use the wheel. But I don't think I was prepared in terms of wanting to draw certain characters, because I was gonna include some of the upper moons into there and some other important kind of like side characters as well. So I don't know, maybe in the future I'll draw a few more, but for now you're gonna just have to kind of live with the fact that I've only drawn 3. I'll make sure that I've kind of put some of my older drawings where I was kind of more into Demon Slayer at the time, and they're very crudely drawn that now that I'm looking at them. Like, I think some of them are sketches from my sketchbook, and then the ones that I did of Nezuko and Zenitsu were done when I was on a trip with my friend, and we went to a different town because she went to a conference and she wanted to take someone along with her, so I went with her, and I literally spent the entire day just drawing and trying to figure out Procreate at the time, because I think I was only learning how to use Procreate, and it's only been like a month or 2 of me using the iPad and Procreate together. So I was very much like fiddling with the brushes, and you can see that the coloring styles are very different from how I color now, which appears a little bit more softer, and the other one just seems a little bit more harsh, a little bit kind of weirdly blurred, I think, in terms of the coloring, or it feels like a little bit muddy in my opinion. But yeah, maybe I'll revisit those at some point, or the concept, because I wanted to do more of like sleeping flower portrait kind of idea, and I think it could be fun to do that and tailor flowers to each of the characters, even though I do like the idea of having a lot of these characters with wisterias, because they do have I guess like a big significant symbol for the entirety of Demon Slayer in general anyways. But yeah, for the background for Shinobu, I decided that I would go with Wisteria's. It kind of fits her color palette really nicely, and I feel like it matches kind of like her character very much so, especially if you read until the very end. I feel like there's a good connection and everything like that. And I kind of miss reading manga, not only because like it's super fast to read. I feel like anime kind of feels like a time sink sometimes, just because you have to kind of block out, I guess, like anywhere between 20 to 25 minutes per episode, right? So it would take a lot longer. And when I was reading, how much can I read? I feel like if I'm reading super slow and I'm reading like everything and making sure I'm not missing anything, I think I read 40 chapters in 2 hours, which probably seems very slow, but I was able to knock out the remaining, let's see, if I did 53 and we did 40, I did about 90. I read the entirety from 90 to 200 in, I don't know, like maybe the same 2 hours? I'm not too sure. Basically, reading the manga is a lot quicker, and I do miss reading manga like that, where I'm kind of like binge reading. So I kind of want to see if I can find a series again where I've either dropped at some point and kind of read up to a certain point, or find a new series, because maybe it's just like when I was interested in webtoons that I suddenly started to drop reading manga in general as well, because that was kind of like the transition for me, is that I would watch a lot of anime, I would read a lot of manga, and this is like my shoujo era, so I read like a lot of shoujo at the time. And I think it's also because like my friends at the time would only read shoujos and they would always recommend me stuff, so I read like a heck of a lot of shoujos. And then after that, I think I read a few shonen, but then I would watch mostly shonen because I find them more visually appealing, but also like very like, it gets my adrenaline pumping, I guess. I always like the kind of, I guess, like anime similar to like Haikyuu, where it gives you that feeling of like adrenaline. It feels like you feel pumped, but you also feel like, oh, you want the characters to succeed and like all that stuff. So it's like, I don't know. It's kind of like a roller coaster of emotion whenever I feel like I'm watching anime versus like reading manga. But I don't know, if you guys have suggestions of mangas that you really enjoy reading, do let me know, because I feel like there are some. I know my friend recommended me to read, I think it's a BL. I think Given is one that I was recommended. There's another cute one that my friend recommended, but I don't really read like a heck of a lot of BL. I've only read like maybe a handful at the time. But I think there's like another shoujo. Oh, wait, I wanted to read, I think Skip the Loafer. I want to read it first before I watch the anime, because I just love shoujo a lot when it comes to manga, so I kind of want to read it first. And then obviously the characters are very cute, so I do want to watch it at some point. And yeah, I think that's it for my kind of little anime manga ramble, probably. But in terms of like fan art, I do still kind of believe in, I personally only want to draw fan art of things that I'm interested in or that I do deem myself a fan of, just because I feel like I like having that genuine connection and genuine interest in drawing fan art for something. And it's kind of nice when you find a community that's just as passionate about the series like you are. And I think that's something like I really enjoy and valued, especially during, I guess it's like right at the end of high school, at the beginning of uni, when 17 first debuted. There was only like a select few of us who did fan art for 17, and all of us were on Tumblr. And I kind of miss those days because I don't know, it was like a tight-knit community. But I'm happy to see like so many like other fan art and other people's like expressions of showing how much they adore both the fandom but also like of 17. So it's just nice to see how much it has kind of grown since that point. But if I wasn't like a genuine fan of something, but I'm constantly posting fan arts of something that I'm not like truly 100% in, when people come to you with that excitement, I feel like I can't reciprocate it, like, because maybe it doesn't feel genuine to me. So that's probably the reason why. Okay, but back to the drawing. So for Shinobu, the last thing I wanted to do was the patterning. I think for Tanjiro, I did do the patterning before I started to render, but I decided to do her patterning last, just because I didn't want to fiddle with the values and because the patterning is mostly black anyways, so it's kind of easier that way. So Shinobu is done. I did add a little bit of effects and I did a little bit of color, I guess like an overlay, so I could kind of change the colors a little bit. So last but not least, I am drawing Iguro, I think is his name. So I was having a hard time picking characters for me to draw, just because there are some that I feel like aesthetically I like more than others, but then there's some that I just like as characters. Now I'm gonna say at the very beginning of when I was watching Demon Slayer season 1, because that's the only one I've ever watched. I didn't watch season 2, and I believe there's season 3, which I did not watch either. And I like, one's the entertainment arc, I believe, and I don't remember if it's season 3 that's coming out or it's season 4 that's coming out, but basically I haven't watched it. But luckily the manga kind of felt quite quick. I don't know if 200 chapters is short, but when I was reading it, it felt kind of short. I don't know if it's because the ending feels a little bit rushed in terms of the conclusion, but yeah, I still enjoyed it though. So let me talk about the characters. So I am drawing Iguro. I do like him as a character, and I also like, is it Mitsuru? It's the basically the green and pink haired girl, like the love Hashira, I think. And I do like the characters together, and they're very cute. But his design I do like, but his hair, or I guess like even if you look at a lot of the Demon Slayer characters, the way that they're stylized for their hair is sometimes very choppy and very layered. Zenitsu is another one that kind of has that same effect on the hair, and just like the way they draw it, I do find it a little bit hard to interpret in a way that is still recognizable. So I definitely think out of the 3 illustrations that I did today, I do like Igoro's a little bit less than the other 2. I think Shinobu is my favorite, and Tanjiro was just like a good introduction into me drawing them, I feel like, just because he is, like I said, one of the most recognizable characters, and I don't think his design's too hard to draw. So like, other than, I guess if you had to think about his birthmark, I'd probably not remember how to draw that, but everything else I think I could just draw from memory for the most part. But some other characters I feel like I would struggle a little bit, just because the way that they textured their hair, or like the way that they I guess like just even, I don't know how to explain it, because I will show you guys some doodles at the very end as well if you stay to the very end. I did like a very quick sketch page of Nezuko, Zenitsu, Giyu, and Rengoku, and I still struggle with Zenitsu's hair, even though I feel like I've drawn Zenitsu technically the most out of all the characters, just because he technically is my favorite character. Technically, I do like Giyu because he's kind of more that stoic, kind of colder character, which I tend to like as well, just because if they show any sort, like, I feel like this is bad to say, if they show any kind of signs of like being a little bit warmer or opening up to other characters, I just like the gap moe of that. An easy character of what kind of represents that. If anyone plays Tears of Themis, and if you play or do any stories of Ardom, in the beginning, like, Ardom seems like very serious, very like prim, proper, very much like he's an attorney, he's your senior attorney kind of thing, he's technically your boss. But the way how he opens up, and he's a little clumsy, and he's like reading books about how to, I guess like how to do things about love and stuff, it's very cute, and I like the gap moe, so I do like characters like that. But so in terms of favorite characters for me, I don't know, I feel like Demon Slayer for me has a solid cast of characters. I did like a lot of their backstories too, and it made me really feel for like a lot of the characters, because spoilers, a lot of them do perish, I guess, in a way. Hopefully that's not, yeah, I feel like because it's already been a few years since the manga has ended, so I don't think it's too much of spoilers. But favorite, yeah, I do like Giyu, I do like Zenitsu, I do like, does anyone remember Sabito? I do like him. I think he's my favorite character when he was introduced in the anime, until you notice that, you know, he's not going to continue with the rest of the squad. Or not even rest of the squad, I guess like with Tanjiro, because he's really only interacting with him. So, yeah. I don't know, I do remember like bits and bobs from the anime, but because it's been a few years since the anime came out, like specifically season 1, there's a lot of things I don't remember. Like, I was talking about the manga a little bit with my brother, because my brother likes to read up on just like any series and stuff, and he retains a lot of information quite easily, so he remembers a lot of the characters, and we were talking back and forth, and I forgot about how many characters were introduced in season 1, because I was talking about like the hashira, or like the pillars and stuff, and like a lot of them I don't remember what they sound like, but my brother does remember, because he's into like reading up on the seiyus and stuff, and he's more of a fan of like voice acting and all that. So yeah, I think it's kind of nice that I did read the manga, even though, like I said, I don't think the manga was necessary for me to draw either Tanjiro, for Shinobu, or Iguro, because they have been introduced in the anime at that point. But I definitely think it helped me kind of, I don't know, like recharge my brain a little bit, just because 1, I really enjoyed just reading manga again, and 2, I think I needed that reintroduction to the characters and have a stronger tie to their backstories and stuff, because that's something I really enjoyed. It was probably just reading the backstories when they were like in the middle of their fights and stuff. So yeah, I'm trying to think what else. I don't remember if I was supposed to update you guys on anything though. I guess we can talk about the process a little bit. So similar to Tanjiro and Shinobu, I did do the sketch with kind of like a bigger round brush to do kind of a rough sketch, like to kind of plan out the body and the little bit of the composition if I wanted to, but it's mostly to plan out the body so that I don't have too many stray guidelines everywhere. And then after that, I lower the opacity. I switch over to the sketch round so that we can do a cleaner sketch. And this is kind of where I'm fussing with a lot of my lines. I'm keeping things as clean as I can so that when I add in the background and then later on the base color for the character, I can have an easier time not kind of fiddling with like what is what versus also me trying my best to keep things within the lines and keeping things clean so that I can, you know, in the end when I need to erase and render and clean up things, it's a lot easier because you can see there's some stray lines here and there and I have to go back, color pick to kind of cover up that line because I do end up merging my colors and my sketch together, but I will always keep my background and then the character on separate layers so that I don't have to worry about erasing the background, because I was an idiot when I first started doing kind of digital painting, and for some reason I just wanted to work entirely on one layer, so I would merge my character to the background. But if you do more of an intricate background or even just like a gradation for your background, it'll be harder for you to kind of like erase around the character or fix around the character and kind of keep your background intact if it's all in one layer. So it's very finicky if you have to do it that way. And I did it like that for quite a while before I decided that I'll keep my character and the background kind of separate. So for all of the illustrations that I did today, after I finished drawing the characters, I did do a little bit of, I think, Gaussian blur for Tanjiro and Iguro, but I didn't do it for Shinobu. And then later on, I will also add some effects. So I added some things to the foreground, like petals or anything floating in front of the character. But after any of the effects, I also added a overlay layer to kind of slightly color adjust everything so that it's kind of up to where I wanted it to be. But now that Iguro is done, I'll do a mini overview. I'll also add the time lapses at the very end for you guys to see. But hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video of me drawing 3 Demon Slayer characters for today, and maybe I'll draw some other ones in the future. But yeah, I think that's it for today's video. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!